Hello everybody and welcome to number 9 on our Python tutorial exercises. Here we're dealing with another function problem, just like we've been dealing with these past couple ones. But we're back to our regular functions, no more lambda for now. Okay. So just by looking at our file here, we should automatically see something that's off. So if we look, we're calling in line 7, we're calling our print function, and we're passing in our render person function, which we defined up here. And you see we're passing in 5 parameters. Okay, but we see in our function definition that we only have one parameter defined. Okay, we know that that's going to cause an error. Right, our function needs the same number of parameters passed in as our function definition has defined. Okay, here we only have one parameter, but we're trying to pass in 5. Okay, so let's take a look on the right here to our instructions. So it says, as a developer, you're going to find functions with even 6 or 7 parameters at a time. And that's fine, right? Our functions could take in any number of parameters, right? So let's take a look at our instructions now. And by looking at our parameters being passed in, we get a little hint here. So it says, please write the render person function. And we want to print out this string like the following here. So let's copy this string. I'm going to paste it over in a comment, of course, just so we don't have to keep referring back to that. Okay, so we want to return this string. Okay, and we see that our parameters that we're passing in is in this string. Okay, and if we keep scrolling down, it says we get a hint here that we have to do some sort of string concatenation. And remember, that's with the plus sign. And string concatenation just combines our strings together. Okay. So we know we want to return this string when we pass in our data to our render person function. Okay. So first thing we should do is we should fix the number of parameters. Okay. So right now let's pick some good parameter names, right? Some good variable names here. So we could say for Bob, we just say name. For date of birth, we could just say DOB. And for eye color, I. And then for age, right, 23. And then for male, we could just say gender. Okay. And we want to return a string. So we can just declare a variable here, we can call it sentence, and we want to assign it our string. Now recall that in JavaScript, how we're able to introduce our JavaScript variables in our string is by using our backticks and opening up our $sign and with our curly brackets. And here we're able to pass in our variables in our JavaScript string. Okay. Now Python's a little different, but it's similar as well. So let's take a look at how Python does this. In order to introduce Python variables to our strings, we just have to use the F keyword outside of our quotes. And just like that, we're able to introduce our Python variables. And similar to JavaScript, we introduce our variables just with our curly brackets. So for example, here we have to pass in Bob. You know, Bob is the first one, so we can just say name here. And we can continue writing our strings like so. So we don't need to use our plus sign anymore. Okay, so it's really nice about our formatted strings here. And that's a technical term for this. It's Python's formatted strings. Okay, so we need to worry about the plus sign anymore. We can just write our string just how we want. So here, let's make sure we're copying this exact. So we could say Bob is a 23. We know 23 is one of our age variables, right? One of our parameters. So let's pass that in. So right now we have Bob is a 23 years old, and then male is our gender. So right now we have Bob is a 23 years old male, born in, and here we have our date of birth, DOB, with, and the last one is green eyes. And we want to make sure we're careful to close off that space at the end. Okay, and our variable is not green, it is I. Okay. So here we see that we have our 5 parameters being introduced inside of our curly brackets, and that's how we're able to introduce our Python variables to our strings. Okay. You see, Python makes it a little bit easier with our formatted strings here. And now we just want to return that sentence. So now our sentence is going to contain the string with our variables passed in. Okay. So, and if I compile this, we're going to get exactly what we are asked in the instructions. And if I click and we run our test cases, we see everything gets passed. Okay. One thing I do want to point out is with our formatted strings here, we want it to all be on the same line. If we, for example, were to do this, and you see that causes an error. Okay, and if you hover over it, it says our unexpected token. Okay, we see some pricing error that we'll get into later. Okay, but for now, we just keep everything on the same line, and that's how we're able to use our Python variables in our string. Okay, we see it's very similar to JavaScript's notation. Okay, so that's it for this one, and I'll see you in the next video.